Hello. Welcome, 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 welcome. I am so excited to be talking about this one. Today, I am diving deep with you, and we are going to explore everything to do with my trip to Mount Shasta. If you have never been to Mount Shasta, it is something else. Here's some pictures that I took from it. It is a spiritual awakening. It is known for its high energy frequency. It's located in California, near Oregon. And I mean, before I even dive in, so this is what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be giving you a rundown of my trip. I just recently went there over my birthday. I went for 5 days and it was a solo trip. I'm going to talk about my trip. I'm going to talk about what I experienced. I'm going to talk about the codes I received. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what are even energetic codes, because we hear it, it's kind of a buzzword, codes, frequencies, right? So we're going to talk about that. And just kind of my own process around this trip. Like, this is going to be a big episode. It's going to be big, and I'm going to try my best to stay as grounded as possible, because even when I start to talk about Mount Shasta and what I experienced there, I get really excited, and the energy gets really fast because just the frequency of what I experienced there was so big. So buckle up. I hope you're ready for this episode. If you are on your own spiritual journey, which I feel like so many of you are, you're going to really enjoy this episode. So I started to receive nudges to go to Mount Shasta, maybe like a year and a half ago, 2 years at the most. And I had no idea what it was. I actually had to look up and start to understand it a little bit more, because truly it is this really big mountain. And when you go to Mount Shasta, it's like a small mountain town. I had to, from where I'm located, just outside of Vancouver, I drove across the border down to Seattle. I then took a flight down to Redding, and then I rented a car and drove up from Redding to Shasta, which was only about an hour. But it was a day of travel. I was originally going to drive down, which actually probably would have been, without stopping, like 14 hours. And I just decided that, as beautiful as that would have been, it would have been a lot. And I'm really glad that I didn't drive down, because I was able to rest and receive on my travel days. I had to drive down to Seattle, and that took 2.5 hours, 3 hours on the way down, and on the way home it was only about 2. But I was able to relax on the plane, and it was just I think overall a much better decision for myself, because the trip itself, such a big experience. I've gone on journeys. I've gone on psychedelic journeys. And I've gone on spiritual journeys of just exploring a new place and feeling into the energy of that place and what I was supposed to receive in that place. But this was so different. I understand now why one, travel is so important, and two, why it's so important to listen to the call when your soul is guiding you somewhere. Because when I went there, I received so much from the land and from the energy and the frequency in that place. And this is anywhere we go. We receive a frequency when we go there. But, it reminds me of when I went to Montreal in the fall. It was the same thing, totally different than Mount Shasta, but there were frequencies in that. And there's something that unlocks in us when we go to new places, when we actually go to anywhere, it can be a place we've already been. There are, I mean, if we go there for the first time, for sure you're going to unlock some new pieces. If you continue to go there, though, I think you continue to receive the frequencies of those codes. And what I mean by the codes, teachings, medicine, like, because you're going to have experiences when you go to these places. You're going to have experiences in your relationship with the land, with the people, with the energy and the frequency of that place. Those are all part of the codes you're meant to receive. But the really beautiful thing is that these are already within you. And that was something I really learned, because when I was there, I was receiving so much. And then when I was starting to leave, I felt this immense guilt. I felt this immense grief start to show up even before I had left. And then really when I came home, and what I realized was that there was this fear of losing everything that I had experienced there. But what was shown to me when I went into the records, and what I began to realize, was that these codes were already within me. This is why we need to listen when our soul calls us somewhere, because you're going somewhere to have these codes unlocked within you. These codes, the deeper wisdom that you will receive in that place is a reflection of deeper wisdom that's already within you. And so that place, that experience, those situations, that land, the energy, the frequency of that place is going to reactivate those codes within you, those teachings, the lessons, the medicine, the deeper understandings, the higher awareness, the embodiment of those pieces. So you go there for it to be reactivated, and then you come home with those codes now alive in you again. It's like they're dormant in your system, in your body, in your energy, and you go there for it to be reactivated. And that was one of the biggest things I really realized, was one, why travel it can be so healing, it can be so awakening, it can be so activating for us. And when we feel the nudge to go somewhere, to trust that, whether it is for a trip, whether it is to live somewhere, you got to pay attention to what it brings up in your body, to the deeper calling, to the deeper nudge. It's like anything that you're meant to do. Your soul always knows, and you'll start to feel the whispers. And this is what I always say about the Akashic Records as well. Like, you'll hear it when it calls you. You'll hear it when it starts to call you and nudge you. And trust that calling, the same as anywhere you're meant to go. So yeah, that was the first really cool piece, was understanding that anywhere we're meant to go, we don't then leave that place and leave those codes behind, and leave those understandings and the lessons and the medicine. That is now reactivated within us, and we're meant to do something with that. We're meant to embody that. I feel like I need to hold a couple crystals for this next one, because it was really big. I went through a really, really big alchemical process when I was there. And this was on, so just to give you an idea, like, people fly from all over the world to go to Mount Shasta to explore it. It's this beautiful big mountain. Actually, if you look at Mount Shasta sideways, it's the divine feminine. It resembles the shape of a woman who is pregnant. And there's so many themes to do with Mount Shasta around rebirth, birth, awakening, the divine feminine. I really felt these energies while I was there. I actually picked up some really beautiful artwork while I was there. So I've really been working with the energies. Where did my other one go? Here we go. I've really been working with the energies of Mother Mary lately. Put it over on that side. Mother Mary. I've been working with the energy of Mary Magdalene. And this is not from, and also the goddess Venus, she played a big part when I was there. This is not from a religious standpoint. I didn't grow up in religion at all, and I have no opinion really of it, whether you're religious or not. And this is one of the codes I received, so I should actually just go there. I was going to talk about something else, but this makes sense to go here next. When I say that I'm working with their energies, that's truly what it is. I call in Mary Magdalene's energy, Mother Mary's energy, Yeshua, also known as Jesus, as well as some other master teachers. I call in their energy each day to support me, to guide me, to hold me from a place of whatever that teacher is for me. I'm calling in their energy to help me embody it through anything I experience throughout the day. I think very much of Mother Mary like compassion with boundaries, compassion with accountability. I think of Mary Magdalene as being able to speak my truth, deepening into my self-expression, deepening into my destiny and my soul mission here, using my voice. She could be thought of as like the throat chakra. I connect with Yeshua to help me embody unconditional love, to help me feel supported in the divine masculine. So when I say that I'm working with their energies, I call them in to help receive their energies when I need them most throughout my days. And this was a really important code that came through that I received on such a deeper level, is archetypal energy. You could think of this as your guides, right? Think if you work with guides, or if you pull cards, if you connect in the Akashic records, if you work with God, if you connect to the universe, source, past loved ones, if you connect more to the archangels, all of them are tools. Again, I've said this so many times before, tools to support you on your path, but especially when we're working specifically with energies, guides, angels. Think of it more of, rather than seeing these energies as giving you the answers, because I think sometimes even in the spiritual space, we're trained to think, I have to connect to this guide, I have to connect to the records, I have to connect to these cards to give me the answers. This isn't exactly the case. It's more so, especially when you're working with an energy, is to call that energy in to help guide you so you can embody the frequency of that energy. That's what this is really about. And that's where you become more of a master on your path, is when you're learning how to work with these energies from a place of, how do I work with the archetype to help me embody more of the power and the wisdom of that energy, rather than seeing that guide, that angel, that thing as the answer, and it needs to tell me what to do. That's where we give our power away. And so I've really begun to explore this piece of calling in these energies to help guide me with their archetypal energy, right? Just like I said, I'll call in Mary Magdalene to help me throughout the day of speaking my truth, of standing in my soul mission, of being able to express myself more clearly, right? So that's something I really want you to think about. And the same could be thought of as the Akashic records. Yes, we go in them to receive clarity and answers, but the Akashic records are above all a frequency. This is what makes it so healing to go within your records and work in it so often, is you're also receiving and experiencing such a high frequency, such a healing frequency. This is why when I started to learn how to work in my own records, I received such deeper healing through the process, because we are connecting to a higher frequency, and we begin to, that frequency pours into us. It comes into your body, it connects into all the little crevices, it clears, it helps clear you by first bringing up a lot of the harder stuff. It helps clear more of the dense energy. So yeah, there's just something to think about here is the codes and the energies that you're wanting to work with. Think of it as an archetypal energy, and how can you call in it more to support you, guide you when you're needing it most in some of those moments throughout your day. So back to what I was originally going to talk about, and that's where I'm like, okay, I got to hold my crystals for this, because I went through a really, really big alchemical process while I was there. So I got there on the Thursday, and I got situated, and as soon as I got there, holy, I could feel the frequency. It was really intense. It was a really high frequency, and it was similar to like anxiety, that feeling that you can get something sometimes where it's like more fight, flight. And it's interesting because when we know what's causing it or where it's coming from, it helps us kind of, or at least for me, it helps me relax more into it. I knew that the reason I was feeling that more intense feeling within me is because the frequency of the mountain is so high. And so I could feel it as soon as I got there. And then the Friday and the Saturday while I was there, I had 2 full day tours booked with this highly recommended tour guide named Paul of Venus. And I will say that being in his energy, he had himself such a deep embodiment of unconditional love. I've never been in the presence of someone like this before. I could relate it actually to Yeshua's energy. It just true, full, pure, unconditional love. It was really hard to see any ego. And I found my ego was even trying to see his ego, was trying to look for it, and really put up a lot of resistance in the beginning when I first met with him on the Friday. Put up a lot of resistance in the beginning to being in his energy, to being in his presence. It was like my ego was looking for, felt it was a fraud. Like it was bypassy. Like, how can he be in such an open, beautiful state of love all the time? And I really had to check myself. I really had to work with the resistance, first and foremost, within myself, because I knew if I let that be my state, it could really prevent me from being able to fully experience what I was meant to experience there, the opening. I knew that there was a heart opening that was meant to happen, meant to occur. So that first day with him, the first part of the first day, there was a lot of resistance. And, I think he could really feel that, because he took me to all of these different vortexes. And the mountain itself has so many different vortexes. And, I'm not going to speak to his journey, but he has done so much work within himself and on that mountain to get him to the place of where he is at internally, where it's just unshakable, this unconditional, pure love within him. And I think he could really feel my resistance. So we were sitting at one of the vortexes in the beginning, and we were exploring, why was I there? What was going on for me in my life leading up to that? And I was talking about different pieces, hard pieces that I was moving through. I really began to explore over the last few months my relationship with men, and, a lot of the codependent patterns that are still there, my difficulties in setting boundaries, which, stems a lot from my abuse when I was younger, childhood sexual abuse, and, watching men throughout my life be in so much pain and feeling powerless in that. And so I began to really form this part within me that would be the savior, that would be the teacher, that would be the doer, the fixer. Sound familiar? I feel like it's a role that I think a lot of women fall into, and being in that masculine energy as well. And so that's been something that I have really explored over the last few months. And I was saying that to him. And so we spent time in this vortex. And what I mean by vortex is he had these instruments, dowsing rods. I'll show you because I picked up some myself. They've been really cool to play with. And you can really tap into the frequency of a space when you're there. Usually, the faster the dowsing rods are moving, the more intense the frequency of the energy is. You can use these actually to build your connection with spirit, to build trust in your connection with spirit. So he was using these when we would go and explore, and he knows where all these different vortexes are on the mountain, because he's gone to all these different vortexes. He was shown them, he was guided to them, and then he did a lot of healing work in these vortexes. And so part of what he does in the tours is he takes people to these different vortexes, and we do healing within them. These vortexes that are created, and they're almost like these containers of high frequency energy, and you sit in them. It's not like it's like a real physical boundary. You find them, you feel into the energy of where they are, and then you sit in them, you meditate in them, you become still, you find your still point, and then you receive whatever the codes are, whatever the lessons are, whatever the medicine is from those vortexes, and they're all different. It's not the same energy in each one. It's not the same codes. It's not the same lessons. You go to these different spaces on the mountain. If you have a good tour guide, they know the good ones, and you sit in them and you receive. And so these are different than portals, right? These are set in space, and I think it has something to do with the energetic ley lines that are created that create these vortexes. Portals are different, and he was telling me the difference here. It was really interesting. Portals are are openings, that energetic openings we create with our consciousness. And so I would imagine, like when we open the Akashic Records, that's a portal. When I intentionally connect with Mother Mary, that is a portal I'm creating with my consciousness. So we'd go to these vortexes, and the first one we were sitting at, we started to explore some of the pieces that I was going through. And I could feel slowly, I think, due partly to being in the vortex and the high frequency, and just, it was crazy. We were sitting there and a hummingbird landed on me. Never had that happen. And I would find that at all these different vortexes we would go to, animals would come and join us in them. A hummingbird landed on me on the first one. Landed. I don't actually know if I've even seen a hummingbird land, let alone on me. Landed right on my knee, because my legs were up. They were on a slant. I was leaned up against a tree, and it landed on my knee. Maybe for like 5 seconds. But wow. You know, we go to all these other vortexes, and all these different animals would come and join us. There were like a bunch of crickets in one. There were a bunch of butterflies in another. And it was just beautiful to see the relationship with the land and the animals and the energy. Never seen anything like it. And so in that first one, I could start to feel my resistance was dissolving. I couldn't fight it. My ego really tried to fight it at first, really tried to fight it. So I told them a little bit about what I was going through. And then we went, I'm not going to say every little thing in detail because it would just be too much, but we went to another vortex after that. It was this beautiful creek. The water there was not just at this creek. The water on Mount Shasta is so freaking clear. You can drink out of the tap. You can drink out of the streams. It's so clear and like just tastes so clear. I didn't want to go. I went to quite a few different streams and filled up my water bottles. Then the third vortex we went to on the first day, it was the Star of David, which actually, very interestingly to me, resembles the Merkaba. If you look here, you can see which is the Star of David. And it was interesting because at all of these different vortexes, we would put out different crystals, and my crystals would just soak in the energy of the vortexes. I had this, I had my different chakra crystals. I would just pull out different ones depending on what felt true. So the last one we went to that day, and this was the next piece that I really went through, was this alchemical process of forgiveness. Oh my God. And we sat in meditation for probably over an hour. And he let me know, I'm going to take you through this process of forgiveness. And we're going to go to your hardest, earliest, most painful memory that you can remember. And so I knew right away that I was going to go back to my first sexual abuse experience with a man who was supposed to be like a second father to me, not my father. It was my best friend's father growing up. And I've done a lot of healing work around this, but nothing was like what I did in this. So we went back to it, and he took me through this. I mean, the best I can say is alchemical, like literally you're transmuting something. And we moved through this process over the course of at least an hour. And I was deep in meditation as we were going through these different pieces. And I could start to see, not in it, but when I reflected on it, and it's been something that I've done almost every day since. I've just started to go to all my different memories and moving through them. I can see there was a kind of like a blueprint to it. I don't want to say plan, because it's still very intuitive. You're kind of like ebbing and flowing through these pieces, but essentially you're moving from going into the memory and speaking from your first person point of view of when you were that age, that version of yourself, speaking to the person directly, out loud. And there's something to be said about using our words and speaking out loud. It brings up the energy, and you start to actually move it somatically. And some of the time I'm like swaying when I'm in it, or moving, or crying, or sweating. Like the energy is moving. You can feel it moving, and the speaking of it helps with this. And so I start to speak to him about the confusion and not understanding and the anger and just all of it, up, out. And once I started to feel like it was out, I went back into my meditative state. I was pretty much in a meditative state the whole time, but then I would back into my breathing. And I would move through this, through all these different pieces of then being able to see him in his humanness, the person, whatever the memory is, in their humanness, that they were also in so much pain. This is such a big part, is that we forget in these experiences that we have that person also is in so much pain. We can't go to that place first, though, because that is invalidating this of what we experienced. But being able to see the person in the pain is so important. It's the humanity. But that piece can only come after you have fully validated yourself. So then I got to that piece, the humanity, the pain, not letting the person off the hook. It's just recognizing that you're in your pain. I see that. I see you. We're still holding accountability here, right? We're not taking it on like it's ours to save. We're holding accountability and saying, I see you in your pain. What you did was not okay, but I see you in your pain. And I understand potentially why you did it, okay? And then through that process, again, go back into the breathing. There's so much release that's occurring in this. And then for me, the next piece was being able to see how why my soul was supposed to experience this. How was this contrast, this pain, supposed to help me? And that might sound really opposite, but truly, every single piece of pain that you go through is here to help you expand into your highest self. The contrast is what allows you to expand into your higher self. Because whatever that contrast is, that pain, you're meant to experience the opposite. But we can't actually experience the opposite without first experiencing that. So then I start to go into this place of, okay, how is this here for me? What might my soul have wanted to learn through this? Why would my soul have chosen this? And this isn't an easy piece of it, because it can be hard to wrap our ego, the mind, around, why would I choose this? But I promise you, when you can get to that place, there is so much freedom. There's so much freedom and also so much power. Because then you realize, if I chose this, that means that my soul knows I'm meant to grow through this. I'm meant to expand through this. So how? How do I do that? So then I spend some time in that piece, breathing, breathing, breathing. And then there's some acceptance that begins to occur. Acceptance of why it had to happen, acceptance of why it did happen, acceptance of how it might have been here for me. Acceptance can help bring us to some neutrality. And I know it's going to sound crazy, but then through this alchemical process, through the understanding of why it could be here for me and why my soul actually would have chosen it, then I begin to find some gratitude. I know that sounds crazy, but that's the medicine, is the gratitude. Because then you start to see, that every person in your life that has hurt you has played a role to bring you back to here, to bring you back to your power, your strength, your truth. And that's also the freedom, is being able to see that every single person who has hurt you has played a role, a really important role, and thank goodness they played that role. Why? Because that's what's going to bring you back to this. That thing is what will allow you to come back to this. So thank goodness. And that gratitude, oof. And then moving through the gratitude, breathing, 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 breathing. And then by the end of it, when there's nothing left to feel or move through or shift, there's just this love. There's just this unconditional love for the experience, for the pain, for the purpose of it, for the expansion. And you might be listening to this and thinking, she's crazy. You know, I might have thought that too many years ago on my journey. But I'll tell you what, one, I would get curious with the resistance if it's showing up, because that's your ego. And your ego is going to fight you on anything that goes against the stories you have always been imprisoned within. Those stories have helped keep you safe because they're familiar and it's what you've always known, and you've built identities on these stories. And so your ego is going to fight you. That resistance, one, I would not be surprised if there's resistance there for you. And two, I would expect it, because anything that is meant to push us outside of the box of what we've always known in the comfort zone is going to have resistance there. That's why I experienced so much resistance on that first day. I would get curious with that resistance, because this could be an edge for you. And maybe something like this, having a forgiveness practice. I mean, talk to me if you need help with this. Maybe this is something that could start to help set you free. And that resistance, your ego knows it. So good. So good. I've been doing this every day since I got back from my trip. Almost every day. There's been a couple of days where I haven't, but it has been groundbreaking in really bringing up such deeper, stuck energy within me, in clearing out more of my heart space, and allowing me to feel, and allowing me to trust, and allowing me to see more love in each person, the inner child in each person that really just wants love. It's been a really beautiful process. So I will say too, if you need help with this, let me know. This could be something that we could explore in my coaching sessions, my deep dive coaching sessions. But just know that you can experience this too. And we're all supposed to. Okay, the last piece that I want to share. So yeah, that the second day was my birthday. And it was a much lighter day. Whew, that first day was heavy, and I really felt it that night. The next day, I woke up, still was feeling heavy. And I even said that to Paul when I met up with him the second day. I was like, it's my birthday and I feel just like so tired. That was another thing. My body was so tired and sore up there because it was really trying to recalibrate to the energy because the frequency was so high. And I found that first day and into the night and into the morning, into the second day, my body was so sore, so tired, and I knew, and I had the worst headache. I knew my body, this is what they mean by ascension symptoms, okay? It's because your body is trying to calibrate to higher frequencies. Your body is trying to calibrate to higher energy, higher being more of an open frequency. And it's that frequency is trying to come into your body and your system and shift some of the denser energy. Think of it like when you put food in a blender, and then you turn it on. That's kind of what higher frequency energy is trying to do in our body and our systems when we are awakening, when we are meant to be clearing. This is why we get so tired through the process, right? So I knew exactly what was going on. I didn't question it. I knew my body was like, whew, we're really trying to adapt to this frequency. And so that next day was it was a much lighter day. And it also rained a little bit that day, which my ego at first was like, this is so annoying. It's my birthday, it's raining. But I realized that there was such a divine piece to it because the rain actually helped ground how high frequency the energy was. It helped me ground more because we still went to all these different vortexes. It doesn't change the frequency of them, whether it's sunny or whether it's rainy. They're still so potent, but the rain really helped kind of ground that. And something that the final piece that I want to share here, a really big teaching, was understanding embodiment on a deeper level, no pun intended. Understanding embodiment, especially in regards to like 5D, 3D. We hear about this a lot in the spiritual space. 5D energy, new earth, 3D energy, old earth, or, old energy that we're shifting out of. But what does this actually mean? This is the unconditional love. This is part of the alchemical process I explored and I experienced. And especially if you identify or feel like you're someone here, or you're someone that's meant to be a light worker here, that's meant to do this work of helping others tap into their light. Something that I've really begun to explore for myself is I'm not a light worker, I am a shadow worker. What does that mean? In order for us to work in the light, in order for us to be the light, to embody the light, we have to be willing to go to our shadow. We have to be willing to work with our shadow. We have to be willing to go to the places within ourselves where there is darkness, where there is pain, where it's heavy and dense, and alchemize that energy. That's how we become more of the light. That's how we bring the 5D to the 3D, is we go within ourselves and we transmute this energy within ourselves so we can embody more of our light. We can't do that without the dark. And I think this is where the spiritual space can sometimes be quite bypassy. Ascension, awaken, enlightenment, none of that occurs out there. It occurs in here. And this is something I really began to understand is, my soul has this mission in this lifetime to help people awaken to their power, to come home to their power, to feel this, to embody this, to experience this. And we do this, and I know this because of my journey. I have done this through going within myself to the hardest, darkest places and alchemized that denser, heavier 3D energy within myself. I brought the light to the dark. In order to ascend, we have to descend into the body, into our pain, into our shadow. And we got to work with that energy. We bring the light to the dark. You cannot have light without dark. And so this was something I really began to experience on such a deeper level on my trip, was that 5D energy that everybody wants to feel, that everybody is thinking we're awakening into. That occurs here. We don't go somewhere for that. And it makes me think of my journey with the Akashic Records, how I connected to the records, but I was doing all the work in here. I was bringing that energy in here to help me alchemize all my pain. I would go in, I've said this so many times, I would go in every single night for months when I first understood and remembered. I say remember because it's a soul wisdom. I remembered how to connect. And I practiced this, and I went in every night and I connected into my records here in the heart space. And I began to understand every single piece of what I've been through in this life connects to so many other soul experiences I've had. I began to understand my patterns, my cycles. I began to understand my pain and its purpose. And I began to come home to my power through alchemizing all of the dark. That's what it means to bring the 5D to the 3D. It's here. And we do it in the heart space. And we do it through taking, I think about the forgiveness practice I did, we do it through taking our hardest pieces and alchemizing them back to love within ourselves. So, if you made it this far, I'm so glad that you wanted to receive this, that you stayed, that you connected, that you listened. And I hope that these codes, these lessons, the medicine that I shared from my trip, I hope that it can help you on your path, on your journey in some way. If there's something specific that really resonated for you, I'd love for you to let me know. Message me, leave a comment. This trip was remarkable. And, if there's anything that I've learned, though, it's that it doesn't just stay as an isolated experience. I'm meant to and have been bringing it home here so it can stay here and so I can share it with all of you. So I thank you for being here. If you need any help on your path, this can be beautiful work that we can explore in my one-to-one soul coaching. I have deep dive containers if you want to go deep, if you're ready for transformation, if you're ready to experience some of these pieces that I've talked about here today. And keep your eyes out. I've got some really exciting things coming up, something I've never offered before that has been percolating, that's ready to be birthed, and it's going to be coming up pretty soon. As always, I still have my readings as well in the Akashic Records if you want to tap in, receive clarity, guidance. And I also have my Journey to Your Records program. It's a certification program. So many things. Let me know if I can support you. Thank you for being here. And I hope you have the best week.